everybody. Welcome to Ask an Expert. We are so excited about today's guest. Somehow my heart is already like bursting just knowing this conversation is about to happen. If that happens, usually it happens like as the conversation goes on. But our guest today is Natalie Hummel. Natalie is a transformational coach, and we'll dig into a bit more about that. But you might know Natalie from In Stride. She did an episode with Sinead, which I was just telling her I re-listened to today, and it is such a good one. Even if you've listened to it before, like I have, please go back to it. Like, do not sleep on this episode because there's so much to learn. It's one of those things that, or it's one of those conversations that can start opening your eyes to new ways of thinking about yourself as a person, not just as a rider, but also as a rider. It's really incredible. And I'm so happy to know Natalie. And every time Natalie and I get on the phone, it goes 100 different directions and in the best way. So that is what I'm hoping for tonight too. But first of all, Natalie, thank you so much for spending time with us today so that we can dig more into mindset work and kind of like holistic person and athlete work too.
Yeah, I'm so excited, honestly. And thank you, because this is my absolute favorite thing to do and talk about. So it's such a privilege. Thank you.
Well, before we dive into it, I mentioned the In Stride episode. I also want to mention that Natalie is doing sessions for Ride IQ members. And those sessions, if you're listening to this as the podcast on the app, those sessions are out. There's at least 4 of them out in the app if you're listening to this. If you're live with us on YouTube or Facebook, those will be out on Tuesday. So there's a lot of directions that you can go. I'm sure that this conversation and the In Stride conversation will leave you wanting more. So there will be a little bit more that you can dig into and even more to come after that. So rest assured. Natalie, can we start by talking about what a transformational coach is and your path to choosing that for yourself?
Yeah. So I don't know what it means for anyone else. And really, I just kind of picked it. So, but what I feel like I do is I help your biology and your psychology get on the same team so that you can achieve what you want in athletics, in life, and your career, whatever it is that you're in the pursuit of. And really, I know I said this on the In Stride podcast, but it's really not about like becoming your best self or becoming your highest self. It's really taking off the programming and the layers that caused you to be inauthentic or caused you to drift anywhere outside of what's true and authentic to you.
One thing that you said in that conversation was, in some cases, the kind of like psychology markers will say that a person is firing on all cylinders and things are good. And yet there's still this feeling of things are not good or they're not feeling fulfilled. Is that what a lot of the work that you do deals with, is getting those psychology markers in line with the rest of it? Maybe living authentically is what addresses the not feeling fulfilled part of it. But is that specific instance what a lot of your work addresses, or is it a variety of feelings?
I mean, it's a variety, it's all things, but when you shift, everything shifts. And so a lot of people, a lot of times, a lot of people that I work with, they have met the markers that they thought was going to give them something. And they have, like, let's say, won whatever competition or have whatever job or are married, and they still have this like wanting more, this hungry ghost kind of sense. And they're like, when is it ever going to be enough? I've had everything that I thought I was going to want, and it just never feels enough. I always feel like I'm striving or asking for more. And so a lot of what we do is being able to be present and fulfilled in the here and now without being that hungry ghost, without being that like dangly carrot constantly in front of you, thinking that something you don't have is going to give you something that you can't insource yourself. And really, like, that's really kind of like a big chunk of it, is when you start insourcing your own experience rather than outsourcing your experiencing, which means like thinking X, Y, and Z external thing is going to give me something that I don't already have. When you can reprogram that way of being, you find more peace, enjoyment, fulfillment, happiness, presence in the here and now, regardless of that external.
Like what I want to feel and experience is within me, regardless of the environment or even like achievements.
Even achievements.
It's so interesting. I want to talk about goal setting as it relates to what you're describing and like having that carrot and striving for things. But first, let's talk more about you so that people who are listening kind of understand your background and how this conversation came to be. So tell us about your riding journey, and then I know you had an academic journey as well that led you here. So give a little bit of context, and then we'll dive into how many times am I going to say dive into? And then we'll get more into these questions.
Okay.
But it just occurred to me that people might be like, whoa, if they are, not fresh off of the InStride interview.
Yeah, I rode myself. I competed myself. I think I relate, or I'm relatable to a lot of people in our equestrian journey, where I kind of got to the point where I'm like, I can't grind any harder. Like it's not possible to be working any harder at this, to be trying any harder at this, but I wasn't really moving the needle. I wasn't progressing. I started riding at, I don't know, 11 or 12, and I progressed really fast, really quickly. And then when I kind of made it the full-time thing, didn't go to college, went and did the whole working student, and then had my own clients and, did the whole thing. I kept hitting up against blocks that I thought were external. And I kept trying to find external solutions, like a different coach, a different horse, a different way of making money, a different strategy of making it all work. And nothing ever really moved the needle. And when I stopped riding, I didn't leave because I was frustrated, but I was really frustrated. And especially looking back, I can see how much of my mental game was blocking things, how much, and I wouldn't have had this languaging, and I wouldn't have said this to you if you spoke to me when I was 24, but like a lack of worth. I just didn't feel like I belonged deep down. I didn't feel like I was actually good enough to be competing at the level that I wanted to be competing at, to be succeeding at the level I wanted to succeed at. And that showed outwardly.
So I think a lot of people, riders or not, like humans, struggle with self-worth and where they get that from. So if you, knowing what you know now, could talk to 24-year-old Natalie, like, because I think so many people, yeah, I'm sure that you have had this conversation. But so many people probably need this sort of pep talk, because especially we speak to our members all the time, and like they say things like, I want to do right by my horse, which makes complete sense. But sometimes there's explicit or implicit undertones of like, I'm not good enough for my horse, which also like falls into the self-worth thing. So back to the question, what would you say to yourself? Because it's very relatable, I think.
I would say to myself, what you want doesn't feel safe in your system. You have subconscious beliefs that are blocking you, and you have a nervous system that is stuck in fight or flight. And so when you add pressure to that, when you add financial pressure to that, when you add all of the stresses of what an equestrian has to go through, you actually can't perform and compete at your best. And it has nothing to do with you being inherently not good enough. It has everything to do with you experience things when you were younger that aren't supporting you achieving what you want. They helped you survive, but they're not helping you to thrive, and you need to heal. And if you would have said that to me at 24, I'm like, heal from what? I would have had no sense of what I needed to heal from, which is like hilarious in retrospect. But
look at you now.
I know. I'm like, that is so funny. So much to heal from. But yeah, and I really would have driven home that there's nothing inherently lacking in you. And your situation doesn't have to look like other people's situation for it to be successful. And actually I did have a coach at one time. She told, cause, and it meant a lot then, but it's even more profound knowing what I know now. But I was getting tripped up because I can't remember what competition it was, whatever. I think it was an FEI competition. I didn't do well. And she was an older coach, and not the coach I was with now. And I called her, and a girl from my past like won it. And I was like, yeah, it's so easy for her. Like, she doesn't have to pay for all of this. She's not like grinding all day, every day in the barn. And I said all these basically comparisons and complaints. And she said, Nat, do you really think they're happier than you? Like, she's like, what do you really think that they have something that you don't have? And at the time I was like, yeah, absolutely. They have money, support, time. I was like, yeah, they have tons of stuff
And
that
now
I
a
don't
first
have.
place ribbon.
Yeah. Yeah. Now this ribbon that I wanted.
Yeah.
And now I see like, oh, she was just meaning like, accept your own authentic path in this. Like, enjoy it. You do enjoy this. You do love this. Why are you creating so much suffering by looking at what you don't have? And it was creating so much suffering.
Talk to us a little bit about you mentioned that your subconscious was really holding you back, especially when you put pressure into that into that scenario, and that's those subconscious beliefs were born out of what you experienced as a child. Will you give more color to that and talk to us about whether, does everyone have this? Should everyone be doing this work? Things like that, so people can understand how it fits in for them.
Number one, yes, everyone should be doing this work. And sometimes we can think, well, like, I didn't have any traumatic events or nothing bad happened to me as a child. And that's great and amazing. But it also, we can form these subconscious beliefs by good things not happening to us. And it's not about blaming anyone or looking at our past with resent or anything like that. It's quite the opposite. It's just honoring our biology. And we have these nervous systems that are coloring and shaping our entire experience. And your nervous system and your emotional body, your nervous system, and your psychology, are your subconscious, are work tangent. They work together. So if you have an emotion that doesn't get regulated with as a child, your brain will come online and create a story about what it means that you have this emotion. And those stories are most of the time, actually all the time, really not supportive of you thriving. They're actually trying to self-regulate yourself from fear, which means by doing. So it's like, oh, you're feeling this way because you're not X, Y, and Z enough. You should, if in order to not feel this way, you should do X, Y, and Z. It's always by doing. That's why if you feel unworthy, you're constantly doing, you're constantly proving, you're trying to fill that. So everyone has these subconscious beliefs, and there's even science that says that 70% of them are unsupportive of our conscious wishes and desires. And really, they're very easily formed misunderstandings in this time of your development, which is mostly from 0 to 7. They're really easily formed. Like, your mom could just not come to a soccer game, and you could have made a lot of meaning about that. And consciously, you can say, oh, well, my mom was busy. She had to work that night. Like, of course she loves me. But subconsciously, during this part of your development, you're in the egocentric part of your development, which means everything happens to me because of me. So mom didn't come to my soccer game because there's something inherently wrong with me, because Jane's mom came to the soccer game. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, everyone has these subconscious beliefs. And I definitely had one that I just wasn't inherently enough. I was inherently lacking. I wasn't athletic enough. I wasn't thin enough. I wasn't wealthy enough. It was like this inherent lack that it wasn't my situation. It was like who and what I was. Mm-hmm. And even though I had really good coaches and I had really supportive environments, because I had these subconscious beliefs, it's just, it ends up blocking you from actually thriving. And we could go into the science more of that, but
it's interesting when you talk about the 0 to 7-year-old, because you think about the logic of a 0 to 7-year-old, and they really are, like, people say main character energy about people, like, they really are the main character. And it is all about them. Everyone else's actions are about them.
Reflection.
So yeah, it makes sense that a lot of stories could be born during that period. And it's so interesting to hear that they can be carried with you for so long and influence what you're doing without your knowledge even. So when you talk about those subconscious beliefs, especially if they start causing things like a lack of self-worth, what does the work look like to recognize what your beliefs are and overcome them so that you can be, and I know that this is like a big path that you would be on, but to give people an idea, like, where does the work start and how realistic is it to really start overcoming some of those subconscious beliefs that aren't serving you?
Okay. So one piece that we missed that this question just sparked is also then you have this nervous system that's either in connection or in protection. And so when your parents, and again, it's people think that trauma is like a car accident or sexual assault. We think of it like this, but really it's a disconnection because of the way we're built, because of our biology. And so when we get emotionally misattuned, or we don't get connected with, because we're biologically wired for connection, our nervous systems will send us into a state of protection. And if this happens over and over again, we get stuck in a state of protection. So that kind of circles back. So I was already in a sympathetic state of doing, like self-regulating by doing from fear. And then my nervous system, if you think about it as a bucket or a window, is actually a better way of thinking about it. And you only have so much capacity. If you add pressure to that, if you add stress or anything that an event or a show or a competition causes, you're going to go outside your window of capacity, further deepening you in a state of protection, and you can't perform at your best. And then on top of it, we have the subconscious belief. So that's why I always say getting your biology to stay into a state of connection so that you can handle pressure, you can handle stress, and also your subconscious or your psychology, meaning your subconscious, on the same side. So then to answer your questions about what does that look like, I think people have a misunderstanding that accessing the subconscious is really hard, or finding what limiting beliefs do I have, or what's in my way. And it's really simple. It's like whatever you currently want but don't have, you don't have a subconscious belief to support that. Like, we're constantly, and I mean manifesting in the truest word, like creating our reality from what's inside of us at any time. So if there's something that you want but you don't currently have, you don't have the subconscious belief to support that. And so it's really easy. If you've been working towards moving up the level and you just can't do it, good time to look at your subconscious beliefs. If you want a relationship but don't have one, good time to look at your subconscious belief. And what that would look like is going and explaining from a bird's eye view now what that situation was happening, how it actually doesn't mean anything about you, and forgiving yourself for those misunderstandings.
And I'm sure once you start going down the road of like, I want a relationship, but I don't have one, and consistently don't have one.
Yeah.
And then through doing the work, you discover what the subconscious belief is and how your actions are acting in line with that and not in line with the getting the relationship. I'm sure it is fascinating, especially for people that you work with, when the light bulbs, like, you've seen the light bulbs go off, but like for the people that you work with to be like, whoa, that is a lot of years of acting in a way that is not in alignment with what my brain tells me I want.
Yeah, and it can be so subtle. Like, that's why I say if you would have told me this at 24, I would have been like, all my actions aligned. All my actions align with
You're doing the work to be the rider and move up the levels and be the coach, seemingly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm working with one of the best writers in the world. Like I show up to this thing every day. I get lessons every day from him or her. Like I do this, but now that I know the freedom that I have, I can see, and then I can see it in my clients. Like for instance, I know one of my clients, she's like a top level writer, and you would think she's doing absolutely everything that she can. And we worked on a lot of these subconscious things, and the needle was moving, but not so much. And we dug a little deeper, and there really actually was a block around winning. Like winning didn't seem safe. Like top 5 seemed more safe to her. And when we looked at that and we clear it, I saw her training schedule completely change. And all of a sudden she was getting more lessons with cross country coaches. And all of a sudden she's like, hey, I think I need a new dressage coach. Like we're brainstorming about that. I'm like, so it seems like it is.
Yeah.
But really, when you clear yourself of this, you can show up in such a different way that you don't even know you're blocking yourself from.
It's amazing. Kinsey, I'll let you be part of the conversation, but after I ask my next question. So I said I was going to circle back to goal setting. And I'm so curious to know what your perspective is on goal setting, because like when you describe that your kind of like ideal state and experience is found within you, how do you match that with having a goal that's outside of you? So if that's like, I want to win a prelim for riders, or like Kinsey and I, that would be business related, like outside of ourselves, how do you align those things? And is there a way to have really ambitious goals outside of yourself that are not like based on your ego?
Yeah. Okay. So this is such a good question. Just to answer that last part, because it's the human psychology, like you're both, you are human and you are essence. Like you are this spirit, well, whatever you want to call it, soul, and psychology, self with a capital S, however you want to define it. And you are this human form living in this 3D dimensional world. And so you have to honor both. But the human psychology loves growth, loves development. You cannot be fulfilled without that. So yes, it can be, but what you will notice is your goals shift the more the more authentic you become. But mastery, I feel like the more authentic I get, actually, the more in alignment with mastery and greatness I get. Like more I like that in every moment. But I'm not buying into the fact that greatness is in this moment, is me showing up completely present at my full self, not holding back, not being shadowy or inauthentic. Like greatness is showing up fully in this moment as well. But I can tell you very practically how I frame goals. But that makes me think of something really cool that I want to say. So also working with someone who's also a top level writer, and she's awesome. She's so cool. And she was really stuck on trying to go to Paris, and really stuck on like, that's greatness, that's mastery. And on one of our last sessions, she had this such cool experience that she was telling me. She was watching, I forget what show she was watching. It was whatever comes right after Kentucky. I can't remember. And she said she was so inspired by this guy, watching this guy ride. She was like, he was just riding every single stride of this horse. And it was so incredible. And the relationship and the dynamic of the horse. And I've chills talking about it. And she's like, that's greatness.
So do I.
I think he had like a rail or something, like he was going to win. I can't remember the full story, but she was like, he was ecstatic. He was like, that was the greatest performance of my life, of here and today. Like that was great. And she was like, it clicked in me. It's whatever this horse can do in this moment. And then even thinking about ourselves, it's like whatever you can do, however fully you can show up in this moment, like that's greatness. That's mastery. Which is so beautiful and so attainable. And imagine if you showed up in every moment that this moment is your purpose. Imagine how your life would unfold, because it truly is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
This moment is your purpose.
It seems more in alignment with the individual than having something to prove, which is like so tempting. And I also want to acknowledge you and your story, because one of the shifts that you made was from pursuing a PhD in psychology to pursuing the work that's more like the work you're doing now. And having a PhD in psychology, society tells us like it would be so cool to say, I have a PhD.
I have a PhD.
Like, yeah, it is. And there are those equivalents times 1,000 in our lives that we're told like that's a great thing to check off. And I love that you were able to be true to yourself and like follow what is true to you and abandon the PhD, because it seems like, I mean, it's clearly it was the right path, but it's not always an easy choice to make.
No, like I even have chills, and it's so funny because everybody in my world thought I was completely insane. My brother, who's a lawyer, was like, what? You're going to take certifications? Like what? Just looked so down upon it. But I knew, I was like, this isn't true. I see it. I'm with psychiatrists and psychologists. I'm watching it. I'm watching their patients come in with the same results. It's not working. So, and my professor at the time said, you could help people right now. And he was like, go do what you're interested in. And I don't know if you know, like to get into PhD, it's like you have to get into the university and you have to get into a research lab. So it's like lightning in a bottle if you get it. And so he said, if you want to come back before I retire, I'll let you come back. But like go. And so I did. And it was such an incredible, expansive experience because I'm in such alignment, and the work that I've done and the knowledge that I sought out is what moves the needle and is what's so helpful and in so alignment with what I knew to be true.
Go ahead. And then Kinsey, you can.
Okay. And then I'll tell you exactly how I frame goals, because I'm sure people actually want to know, because we have goals, we have things we want to do. And so this is one of the reasons why I love working with athletes, because they have a goal. They know what they want. It's like, this is what I'm after. And so for people that, especially for like you and Kenzie too, that it's not so it's not so easy to be like, oh, I want to do an FEI. It's a business. It's really dynamic. It's hard to know. I like to set a vision, untime bound, just like exactly how I want my day to look, how the meetings I want to be having, the people I want to be surrounded by, what I want to be showing up as, like just a vision, not time bound, so your ego doesn't get involved in it. And then I like to, okay, if that's the vision, where are you now? And start working systematically backwards. And I like to do things in 90 days. So like if in 90 days, what can you do to move the needle from here to there? And this is the most important part of the goal setting thing, is what do you think the goal is going to give you? So like if you want more money, what do you think that's going to give you? Freedom. If you want to move up the levels, what do you think that's going to give you? Like mastery, skill. So define what it is that you want to feel. And then this is like the deepest part of the work. And it sounds really paradoxical, but let me explain. And I can give an example too. You always want freedom to something, not freedom from something. So if you're wanting more money because you don't want to feel limited, even though that sounds logical, that's not going to work. Because you're going to be working from the energy of avoidance, of avoiding feeling trapped or limited. And you're paradoxically going to create more limitation. So you have to feel what you don't want to feel. You have to feel limited. You have to be fine to feel that sense in your body, because paradoxically, when you embrace the sensation of limited, you feel limitless. And then from that place, from no avoidance, create from that. So create from that limitlessness.
Is being willing to feel limited, is that to demonstrate to yourself that you can endure that experience or emotion sitting with that?
Yeah, it's so that your nervous system is like, oh, there's nothing to fear here. I
Mhm.
can be in connection and have this experience because your nervous system is constantly looking to be in connection with. So you're scared of feeling limited because you think you're not going to be loved, accepted, connected with. And so it's like a hack almost. It's like, okay, nervous system, I can stay present with you. I can have this experience. There's nothing to fear. And then when there's nothing to avoid, you have the freedom to things. But if you don't, your nervous system is going to block you at every step of the way.
Yeah.
I have a really good example because this one relates to everyone. You know, the girl that doesn't want to feel lonely. We all know this girl. We've been this girl. We know her.
I am her.
Yeah. We either know her or we've been her.
Yeah.
Or maybe both. Okay. And so she's unwilling to feel lonely. She's unwilling. So she gets in relationships that don't serve her, that are not on the same level, that don't align with her, all in avoidance of feeling lonely. But paradoxically, what does she always feel inside those relationships? Lonely. It's like, and celebrities are a good mix of this. Like they want to be powerful in this, and they want to have money, and they get notoriety and they get fame, and it's never enough because they're creating from that. You're going to always get with the energy and what you're creating from.
There's so many questions that I have, Kinsey. I'm sorry. The celebrity thing has come to mind a number of times because it is such a clear demonstration of, you reach the fame, or you reach the wealth, or you reach got a Golden Globe, and then come to find out like these people are feeling so miserable that sometimes it's like really extreme outcomes that you would think like, how could they be miserable? They have the things, and it's because like the things are not what make life feel not only bearable, but like enjoyable and true and right and all those things. Okay. My question was along the lines of, okay, and this came up when you mentioned it on the InStride podcast, but when you were true to yourself and decided to at least pause, but really like deviate from the PhD program and do what's right for you, it reminded me of a conversation that I've had with so many adult amateur riders since the Ride IQ journey started a couple of years ago. And it's that they will start kind of like dancing around the riding that they're doing. And then like through the conversation, be like, I decided that I'm not competing. And it just seems like it's like they're embarrassed by the fact that they decided they don't want to compete, but they just like enjoy riding. And I'm always like, that sounds beautiful. Like you have this activity and you don't need to go to the competition for you to enjoy it. And yet they feel a little bit like nervous about, not nervous, but just like not super proud of saying that that's how they're approaching this activity and this thing that they love. Can you give us some insight into that and maybe just speak to it for anyone who's feeling either if they're in that exact situation, or maybe they're just like, I want to do beginner novice. That's what brings me joy. But they're feeling, I mean, it also is along the lines of when I hear people like always like, I'm going novice, but I'm schooling prelim and I'm going to move up. Like all of the like wanting to say like, this is it, what do you have to say about that?
Wow. You touched on so many things. I'll start with the adult amateur that just loves riding but doesn't want to show and feels like shadowy and almost shameful to say it. That is such a product of our culture that totally values productivity over enjoyment. Like we have no life. And honestly, to have a life and to have something you enjoy is so counterculture. We, especially as Americans and North Americans, we are productivity number one. What do you produce? What do you succeed? What are you accomplishing? It's not like, what are you enjoying? How much? Yeah. And so we have a misunderstanding that if we're achieving, if we're succeeding, then we'll finally be worthy and we'll finally feel good enough. And so for these adult amateurs, I'm like, wow, I'm so proud of you that you can enjoy something. And like goes back to what we were saying, like truly, as a human, we have one purpose, and that is to be completely our full, whole, worthy, authentic self in every moment, to make every moment the purpose. That's the purpose of living. And so if that manifests in, I want to go ride my horse, like completely present, whole, worthy, and complete. Absolutely. And it's so beautiful. And it's so beautiful you have something in your life that you love and enjoy. And really, truly, horses and that this sport is beautiful. No matter how you do it, this relationship with this animal, the constant like education that you could be having. I mean, it's incredible. Where else could we go with that? What else did you mention? You mentioned something that I was like, oh yeah.
I also tacked on that sometimes people want to, want to be like, but this is next. And I'm not sure where that insecurity comes out of.
I have such a cringe story that I always think of, and I'll out myself. I remember I was out to dinner. It was when I first started working with like this amazing person. And I was out to dinner with like his head groom, and she's I could call her, I could say who it is, but I won't. She's hilarious. She's awesome. She became one of my really good friends, her and someone else, and like a bunch of other top riders and her. And they asked me about my horses and what they were doing. And I was being really ambiguous about what they did. I kept saying upper level, but I was being ambiguous, and it was on purpose. Like it was like, I did not want to say that this horse was only doing a 1-star, now 2-star, or this horse was only doing a 2-star, now whatever, 3-star, whatever it was. I didn't want to say it. I was being really ambiguous. And the head groom at the time literally was like, so wait, what did that horse actually do? Like it was so funny. And I swear I always think about it, but it just goes to show how it's such proof for how I was feeling in a sport that says you have to prove yourself and you have no worth other than like what you've done. And I was so a part of that, and felt so victim to that. And felt so unworthy that I hadn't done a 5-star yet, or hadn't done a 4-star, that I hadn't done any of it yet. And I felt so like shameful about it.
Yeah. There have been so many times in my life where I had something to prove and where I made a choice because I had something to prove and wanted to be like, I did it. Like, see, I am smart or whatever it is. But I think like through this conversation, it seems like that should be not a red flag, but that should be an indicator if you have something to prove, or if it's like you are excited to be able to tell people about this, to like take a pause, because maybe that's not serving you.
It's not serving you. And it's so funny because I wasn't successful when I was operating from, which is even more paradoxical and hilarious. I know there are some people that are really successful from that ego state of proving. But for the most of us, it doesn't really work. And we even then use that as proof of like, wow, we are really not enough. And so, yeah, if you're in the proving energy, welcome to the club. We all do it. We're biologically wired. Like we want to be in connection. We want to say and do the thing that's going to give us love, approval, and validation. It makes total sense. Don't add judgment on top of it. And there's freedom from that.
Yeah.
So much freedom. And I said it on the In Stride podcast, and it will resonate to some and it won't, but this like, I am feeling is the best feeling in the entire world. It's like, there's nothing to prove. There's nothing to do. I am.
I am so glad you brought that up. So that came up when Sinead asked you, like, if you have a mantra that you live by, and the conversation took you to the I am, and you just described it a little bit, but why does that, just to go a step further, why does that mantra bring you peace or correctness?
Well, once you do the work, so it's so paradoxical. So let's take this lonely girl for an example. If she's feeling lonely and she went to another therapist or coach or whatever. And they're like, let's do affirmations. Like, you don't have to be in this relationship. Like, I am beautiful. I am confident. Like, I am magnetic.
I'm
Well,
worthy.
yeah, I am worthy. Well, maybe you're not. No, I'm just kidding. But you're not feeling that. And that's another form of gaslighting and really deepening this misalignment with your biology and your psychology. So really the way out of it, which is so paradoxical, is to be like, I feel lonely, and notice where in your body you feel that. And instead of talking yourself out of it or distracting yourself out of it, like actually feeling what that feels like. And it's so paradoxical, but when you feel that and you meet that part of you with presence and love, it changes into, so lonely changes into like complete wholeness, or unworthiness becomes the like, I am superpower feeling. Like there is nothing to prove. And it's this innate state inside of you. And it's actually a nervous system state as well, the top part of your nervous system. But there's like, it feels like the ocean floor, like anything and everything could happen. There's nothing to prove. There's nothing to do. It's like, I am here and that's it. I'm whole and I'm present. That's all. Like maybe I'm not beautiful. And from that place, you don't care. Maybe I'm not confident. And that's the place that you're really truly capable of anything.
So I have a question that's like related to how I kind of feel like I operate, but I'm hoping other people can relate and are like, oh wow, me too. One thing I find myself doing is, rather than like trying to prove myself in conversations or like getting out there and being like overstating the reality of my situation, I vastly understate. And
Yes.
I will always be like, oh, it's no big deal, or like, oh, I don't know, it's probably not going to happen, or I can't do that, I'm not very good at that. And like I'll actually say those things out loud. And I think I do it just because I think it's like humble, and I think it's like the nice thing to do. But it's kind of like the opposite of what you're saying, where I'm almost too comfortable in like those states that are scary, because I'm just like, if I embrace that, then at least I'm like, not, no one can hurt me, maybe, I don't know. But I don't know, yeah, like what your thoughts are on people who kind of go to the exact opposite extreme of like, they're not overselling, they're underselling.
Yeah, it's a different side of the same coin. It's still this of avoidance of feeling. So, I mean, and a couple of things come to mind, but like of, and this might not be you, so correct me if I'm wrong, but some people like won't set goals or won't, because the vulnerability of doing that and an avoidance of feeling the disappointment. So it's like they undercut what they can achieve. They don't sell themselves like in interviews, because then they would have to live up to a standard and they don't want to disappoint themselves or disappoint others. And so it's an avoid, again, a freedom from avoidance, like a freedom from disappointment or vulnerability. And that may or may not be what you're talking about. But another thing that comes to my mind, Kenzie, is, so what we're talking about is shadow. Either way, like you're trying to prove, or you're hiding and shrinking it in the other way. And so what I found with myself and with working with other people, that actually it it's actually almost easier to accept like the shameful, the unworthy parts of ourselves, um the failure part of ourselves. Like it's actually, we can do that. And it's really hard to accept our greatness. It's really hard to accept that we could be like magnificent, or we could be really successful. And that seems just as scary, because it's the same thing. Like you're fearing that you're going to lose connection, or that you won't be accepted in this. And I have a client that, again, I already mentioned her, but when she wasn't really, like, she felt more comfortable in top 5 than number 1. And it's because like of a situation that happened to her when she was younger and being around all these girls, and she was winning all the time. And then it actually caused a disconnection in their relationship. And like her mom was like, you can't always win. Like your friends are getting like upset, like, or at least don't show that you're winning. And so it's really common for us to have a really hard time to accept our greatness. It's really hard.
That's an interesting example because I did find that, like, I mean, growing up, I had this horse that he was perfect. Everything about him was perfect. And like, I was not doing anything special. This horse was just perfect. And in the Midwest, like he would win pretty much everything. And I started to feel very self-conscious about the situation because like Jess's friends, people who were older than me, like their moms would get upset about it. And they'd be like, I would hear them saying things that weren't nice. And I was just like, I mean, like we're kids and we're doing this sport for fun. Like this does not matter. It wasn't like I was like really caring about the winning. It was just the horse was amazing. He was the cutest.
It was a
thing ever.
quarter horse too.
Yeah.
So cute.
But he was just like perfect. He was a perfect novice training horse. Like he just couldn't do anything wrong. So I can totally relate to that. Like feeling like if you win if you have that experience when you're younger and like people don't necessarily embrace you for it or like make you feel bad about it, maybe that's like part of the reason that. And I also can clarify that like I think I really undersell or like am not quick to try to prove myself in social situations. I would say like it's at that dinner with all those other like upper level riders, like that wouldn't be a situation where I would feel like I'd want to prove myself or something. It doesn't really come through, I don't think, as in like professional situations, but it is something I've definitely found myself doing. But I don't know. It was just a question I thought maybe somebody else could relate. On an unrelated note, we've had a couple of comments in chat from members who have shows coming up like this coming weekend or in the next couple of weeks, and they're feeling uncharacteristically nervous. And I'm sure it depends on the individual, but are there any kind of processes you recommend riders take when they're like, wow, I've got extra butterflies, or like, this is an unusual feeling I feel going into this next show?
Okay, yeah. And it's so funny because I think there's a misunderstanding that only happens when you're an amateur or that only happens when you're in the lower levels. But again, I was talking to someone that's competing in Aachen, and she's like, I am so nervous, and I'll tell them what I told her, and she's like, that's so paradoxical. Like I want to avoid these emotions. I don't want to like go into the nervous. I don't want to acknowledge that I'm nervous. Like I'm supposed to be in like a competitor's mindset. And when we do that, when we avoid emotions, it's really going against our biology. That's actually creating more unsafety. And it's actually like shoving a beach ball in water, trying to like suppress something. And it's going to come up when you don't want it to. Like I've seen it in so many times, like forgetting your cross country course or like your dressage, or just like getting completely unfocused and unpresent because you've been trying to shove down these emotions, and your nervous system and your capacity doesn't work like that. And so what I'm about to say is really paradoxical, but if you're nervous, and actually there's in the series that we do on the app, there's going to be one that gets you ready for it, and all of them building up to it gets you ready for it. So definitely check them out and you'll get better at this process over time. But what I would say is, what would you say to your horse if your horse was really nervous? Would you be like, oh my gosh, don't be nervous. Like, oh, how dumb. Like you've done this before. Why are you being nervous? And maybe you would, and that's not the right answer. You would be like, oh, like, yeah, you're nervous. It's new. That makes sense. That makes total sense. And that's totally okay. And you're allowed to be nervous. And I'm here and I love you regardless. And like, you would just like pat your horse and like, it's okay, boy. Like you got it. But you wouldn't talk him out of his feelings or degrade him for having these feelings or put shame and judgment on top of these feelings. So if you have a show coming up, and you're feeling extra nervous, what I would have you do if you were my client, I would say, okay, I want you to speak from the part of you that's nervous. And if you're alone, you can either journal from the part, or I'm a talker. So I would just speak directly from the part of me that's nervous. And then I would have you talk to yourself like you would talk to your horse. Like now respond to the part of you that's nervous. And love doesn't try to hide reality. So it's not like, don't be nervous, you're perfectly capable. No, it's like, I hear you, I see you, I understand you, because that's how we're built. That's how we're built to build safety, is I see you, I hear you, I get it. And so your system understands like, oh, I can have this emotion and be in connection. And then I would just have you locate, like, where does the nervousness feel? Like, is it butterflies in your stomach? Is it a tightness in your chest? Are you getting a lump in your throat? And then what would happen if you just breathed into those sensations without resistance, without making them wrong? If you just breathed into those sensations in your body without avoiding them, you're going to notice something really cool. It's going to feel like a superpower. You're going to feel the opposite. You're going to feel really, I hate the word confident, but you're going to feel confident. You're going to feel brave. You're going to feel present, which is what you want. And so that whole system might sound really not intuitive and really paradoxical, but if I can promise you, that is the ticket to everything and freedom and exactly what you're looking for.
It does sound empowering because you had the bravery to even meet the emotion. And
yes,
I think different things will resonate with different people and be like the aha moment, but saying like, don't gaslight yourself really resonates with me. So
yes.
like recognize it's like, just, it's happening. So be there with it. I have an odd question, but it came up today and I was like, I wonder what Natalie would say about this.
Yeah.
So I interacted with someone today who I thought was just like obnoxious, and it kind of like set myself off on this weird path all day when I just like kept going back to this person that I was so annoyed with. But then I was like, people are a result of their childhoods, and who knows what, like, why that's like, how do I meet that person with grace genuinely and not let it derail my day? How do you meet people who you're like, okay, that you're acting obnoxious? And like, are you able to be like, I know that like as a human being, you are not in all likelihood an obnoxious person. Like this, you're acting this way and it's not agreeing with me. Do you have any thoughts on situations like that? Because then I would feel more in control of how I experience the rest of the day.
Yeah, exactly. So I have so much to say about this. I don't even know where to start. But one thing that's coming to mind is, and this is a testament to the work, not to me, but one of the best things that one of my clients in a group session ever said to me is she's like, I actually learned so much from you, not from just the modules and the this, but she's like, watching you interact with people and genuinely stay in an energetic of love and how they just would like act completely different. I mean, that I will never forget that. That was like such a huge thing for me because that means so much to me, but it's also a testament to the work because I have not always felt or been like that or met people like that. But what comes up for me, if you were my client and you came to me about a person that was obnoxious, we would do a little bit of shadow work because they're demonstrating a trait in you that you have learned you will not get and receive love for being that way. And so it's triggering for us when somebody's acting in a way that we've been like, oh, we're not allowed to be that way. Nope, nope, nope. And so this is why like other people in relationships are such incredible mirrors for us. And when I work with people, I always make them take notes of what triggered them and who they were judging that day. Because if you're judging it in them, you've judged it in yourself. And so it would more be about like, okay, what is this trait being demonstrated? When did I decide that that trait was not okay for me to be? And can I go back and give that part of me unconditional love no matter what? And then you might be thinking, well, I don't want to act that way. But you wouldn't. When we accept all parts of us, we act from wholeness, not from polarity. We act from this whole person. So it sounds really, all this work is really paradoxical. That word can't be used enough. But like if somebody's really the B word, and that's really like, oh, like getting to you, it's like, you're not going to act like that, but you need to embrace the part of you that you judge for being that way. And when you do, you actually can meet that person that's acting like that from love. And love isn't a doormat though. Love doesn't just say like, oh, you get to act however you want to act, and that's fine with me. Like, that's, love is water. It doesn't avoid and it doesn't recede. It like keeps moving with it and staying with it without avoidance and meeting things with love. So, and then also, if it was still sticking with you, I would be like, okay, what is it that you don't want to feel in this situation? And let's get your nervous system used to feeling that so it doesn't trigger it in the same way.
That's really interesting. And I like the paradoxical part of this, because it's like, in a lot of ways, it seems like it's simple work, but not necessarily intuitive. Like, once you know how to approach it, it's simple, but simple doesn't mean easy.
Yes.
Also, I recognize, like, in this situation today and in general, once it happens, I can meet that like bad energy versus saying true and consistent with my own, like, having control. I could have met that person with something nicer than the second I was triggered. I was like, now I'm like here to butt heads with you, you know? And that would have changed the outcome, I think, too.
Yes, exactly. And that, yes. And it's so crazy when we shift. And it's also like, it's wild when we start insourcing, which doesn't really make sense at first but I don't have another word for it. When we start insourcing, meaning like we're in charge for our own safety and emotional state, we relieve other people and our horses. So this really comes in handy with horses. So if you're taking what your horse does personally, like, this work would be so helpful for you. We relieve the other person of any responsibility of having to be or act or say a certain thing. Like, other people don't have that responsibility for us anymore. They can be as they are, and we can be okay with it. And that's a privilege of safety. I could go more into that, but yeah.
Go ahead.
So one thing, I know we're coming up here on the hour, and this might be too big of a question, but I wanted to get it in there just in case. I know a lot of our members and even some of our coaches have experienced bad falls and have a really hard time coming back from those, not only physically, but mentally. Are there like things that you recommend or like processes to help somebody recover and like kind of get back to where they were before, even in a better state after a fall?
Yeah, so it is a big question, but all the time this comes up. Obviously, this is a huge thing that comes up. And in this sport, one of the reasons why this sport is so cool and so cool to be on this side of things is there is a real sense of danger in this sport, and you want to respect that, and you want your nervous system to respect that. And there's like a great cocktail that you can get in your nervous system that's like a hyper focused state, because that's what you need to honor. And it depends on the level, but like, if you want to be focused and you want to be in the moment, you don't want to be in the story, you want to be in the place, the state of your brain, that your muscle memory is all available for you, that you're not stuck in story and repeating something, and you're not stuck in fear. And so when you are scared of falling, you're automatically going to get outside your window of capacity in your nervous system. And so higher levels of thinking, logical thinking, muscle memory, all of these things that are going to help you aren't available. It's like you're it's like you're in reverse when you're supposed to be in drive. Like, it's not available. And so what I help people really do is accept the fear. Like, learn how to accept the fear, embrace the fear. All of what we've been talking about is embrace that fear so that your nervous system can widen its capacity around it. And so when it feels that fear, you will relate to it completely different. It won't have the same weight on your nervous system, but two, you can still stay in that state of your nervous system that doesn't take you outside and into defensive states where muscle memory and logical thinking don't exist. So the process would be to meet that fear and embrace it, which I love what Jessa said, that the work is sounding really simple, because it is. it is really simple. Once you understand biology and once you understand psychology, it's really simple and it becomes really, really, really repetitive, but it's not easy in practice. And actually, what I'm asking you to do, most of the time, you need to practice doing it with someone first because we are wired for connection. And so sometimes we don't have the internal resources enough to feel fear. Like if you've ever like felt an emotion and then like been so stuck in it, that's because you needed someone else there to regulate it. But the next time you had that emotion and you were properly co-regulated with it, you'd be able to feel it. So sometimes if you do have a really debilitating fear, like reach out to a sports psychologist or a coach or a therapist that can help you get past that, because some things are outside of our capacity to do alone.
Wow, that part is really interesting. That doing the work for the first time is often better with someone else. I also want to let people know, I kind of said it at the beginning, but Natalie's sessions that are getting released on the app really go step by step through the approach and then gives you actionable activities to start working on this stuff. So if this is a taste and you're like wanting more, it is Natalie so thoughtfully like outlined this course for you. So don't worry, it's there for you and she's here for you. What was my final question going to be now that I said that? I had one. What was it? Oh, I remember. Okay. I think this is the perfect topic for the final question to be, if you had one, it's how Glennon Doyle ends her podcast. Like, what's one easy thing that all listeners can do that might benefit them, might not, but like just like really simple that you would suggest for whatever outcome, like a little mini challenge.
What's one like actionable thing that they can do?
Yeah, like on Glennon's show, some people will be like, go stand in the sun for 2 minutes. But it could be anything. It could be like sit with, I mean, whatever, it really could be anything.
It could be anything. And I do mean
anything at all.
Wow.
And people are required to do it.
And people are required to do it. I'm so blinking. I'm like, I'm thinking of all these things, but they're
not that easy.
They're not that simple.
I
was avoiding saying this because I know people are attracted to like, these are the 3 steps to like master your mindset. And these are like the 5 things you can do for your nervous system and there's all this rhetoric about cold plunges and all of that is true. It is true, but they're really not getting to the meat of what actually is going to change your life, because what's going to change your life is the things that people aren't doing, because it's not simple, because it's simple in the ideology of it, but it's not simple in the practice of it. And I said this on the last podcast I was on. I was like, I think people are actually like, everyone is like trying to make the truth simpler and it's getting lost in translation. It's like, it's not actually working. So I was like, I'm just going to say it. But if I could give you one thing, if you want to change your entire life, if you want more freedom, more joy, more peace, more presence than you ever thought possible, get really good at being with your emotions. And all of them, sadness, joy, happiness, like elation, get good at really feeling and embracing your emotions. And whatever pathway you get to doing that, beautiful. But that is what will change your life.
What a perfect answer. I love that. And I'm so glad that we get to feature you not only in Ask an Expert, but in general, because you're clearly in alignment with what is meant for you, and people are so lucky to be able to learn from you. And I'm so happy that like you're in the role that you are. I would second what that person said, learning from just being around you and kind of observing you. Your presence every single time we interact is like so genuine, and it's not something that I can yet carry throughout my day, but it's so positively impactful to be around people who demonstrate qualities that, I'll speak for myself, like that I want to take on. So thank you for doing the work yourself to be able to demonstrate that.
Wow. Such a very heartwarming and touching thing. Thank you so much for saying that. And I truly enjoy this so much. So any listener, anybody out there, like, this is my life's work. This is such a privilege. I always say, like, you're my horse. Like, so it is a privilege. Like, you having questions, you being curious. It's like, it's such a privilege for me. So thank you so much.
Will you share with us, just to end, where people can find you or get in touch with you online, or elsewhere? And then also, are you taking on clients? Are you doing any workshops? If people wanted to work more directly with you, are there opportunities right now?
Yeah, it's actually such good timing because I'm starting my next round of my program, How to Heal, which does exactly what we've been talking about. It gets your biology and your psychology on your team to achieve what you're wanting. And so that starts in August. And there's actually like an early bird special happening where if you sign up, you get a discount and you also get like a session with me. So it's a really good time. Yeah, it's a really good time to sign up. And you can find that directly through my website, which is nataliehummelcoaching.com, or you can reach out to me via Instagram, which I think is the same handle. I'm pretty sure it's the same handle, nataliehummel.com. And you can message me. I love voice noting you. So I'll probably voice note you back and we can talk about what fits and what works. And I do work with people one-to-one, but I recommend that people go through the course first because they get like a really good foundation. And then one-to-ones are like really effective when after you've been through the course.
Yeah. How long is the course? I'm guessing it's virtual.
Yeah.
How many people will be in it at once?
It's virtual. It's 4 months. And
cool.
yeah, I love it so much. It's 4 months and we meet one required time a week, but I do office hours if you need more support or more help, or you want to go over the tool again. I also have another office hour that you can come to, and I'm going to have a mentor coach that checks in with you more often. And so that's 4 months, and you have modules that you listen to, you get tools, they're not meditations, but that's what people would understand. It's like a somatic practice that like you could turn on when after you've had someone annoying, or if you're going to go do a competition and you want to like be really clear and present, there's like there's recordings that you can listen to. And then we come together and we deepen on the live calls and I coach you live. And there's the group. I even like my first round was like, I had such a resistance to doing the group. I'm like, I did too.
Yeah.
Because I love one-to-one. I love going deep. I love building connections, but the group offers something that one-to-ones can't. The group is like this collective healing. And I thought of this analogy the other day. It's like, when you're just in a lesson one-to-one with your coach and you thrive and you're doing so good, but then you go to like warm up in a ring and like everyone's watching and all of a sudden like you can't stay concentrated and you can't think straight. It's like, that's what group does. It gets your nervous system to like be seen, be vulnerable, like be comfortable doing this. And we heal in connection. So the group gives you something that one-to-one doesn't. It's really fun to go through the process with other people.
That's amazing. I wish it was starting sooner, but I know that August is right around the corner.
I know.
All right. Well, Natalie, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who tuned in and asked questions. And Natalie, we're looking forward to all of your upcoming content too. So thank you for that as well.